Chile after a magnitude 8.2 earthquake.
A tsunami warning remains in effect for Chile and Peru, and we have already heard reports of waves higher than 2 meters hitting coastal towns.
The quake was centered about 95 kilometers of the mining town Iquique off Chile's Pacific coast. It had a depth of about 20 kilometers.
Chilean authorities say so far there are 2 confirmed deaths, and the coast has been shaken by at least a dozen aftershocks as powerful as 6.2. Well, for more on this earthquake, let's bring in Ivan Cabrera. He is tracking developments from the World Weather Centre. And Ivan, as we've been reporting, a number of waves have hit some of these coastal towns. What about this tsunami, though, that's on the way? What information do you have on that?
Yeah, so the waves are the tsunami, right? They just come in succession here. We have a 1, 2, 3. What we don't know at this point, we know tsunami was generated here. Those waves have come in along the shore. What we don't know is how destructive those waves have been, and it's going to be a while before we can assess what has happened along the coastline. But I want to bring you up to date on what's going on as far as the watches and warnings. Watches have been canceled here, so that is excellent news. And what that basically means is that this is not going to be a Pacific-wide event, right? This is going to stay in a regional zone and perhaps even just local to Chile and Peru, which is where we have the warnings still in effect. So if you're anywhere along the coast in Chile and Peru, you must get away from the coast, as we've been talking about. Now, this is new, an advisory for Hawaii. What does that mean? Well, it means they're not expecting a destructive tsunami, but changes in sea level could affect some of the marinas there. For some of the swimmers that are out there, that could be a problem there, but not expecting a significant event there, certainly in Hawaii. But they have decided to put up an advisory as a result. As a result of an 8.2, which is a great earthquake. You only get to average about 1 a year here, and this one was at a depth of 20 kilometers, relatively shallow. Sure, 10 would be worse, but 20 is enough. And this is what we call a megathrust earthquake. The displacement from those plates is up, and so essentially, literally, the water gets lifted up, and that's why you can generate a tsunami when you're talking about subduction earthquakes. Here are some of the tsunami arrival times for that initial wave. If you are in the path of this, certainly heed the warnings that have been put out. Just one of the modeling forecasts from the Tsunami Warning Center as far as how the waves propagate. You can see it's a 360-degree situation here. Think of it as just another way to think about it is if you throw a rock on a lake and you get all the ripples that go in a 360 fashion, right? Everything pushes out. And the closer you are to that initial event, that epicenter here, the stronger it's going to be. And this is that radius here, very dangerous conditions and very short amount of time to warn you. The dots you see here represent also additional earthquakes, which is going to continue for weeks and months, but the dangerous ones will continue for the next several hours. Already had a 6.2, and that one was not even at the epicenter. It was right along the coast here. Additional earthquakes will likely continue over the next couple of hours or a couple of days, certainly through the next several hours. These are some of the wave heights that are measured, but again, you have to multiply this because as that 2-meter wave that was recorded over the water approaches the shore, we run out of space there, and so the water gets bigger, the wave gets bigger, and that's why the destruction can be significant. Obviously, as I mentioned, we still don't know the extent of it, but once we do, we'll certainly let you know. Danger still out there for Chile and Peru.
So, Ivan, with the information you have, you can't predict how big that tsunami will be after these 2-meter high tsunamis.
No, you can't. It's all very dependent on the shoreline and just the bathymetry, essentially the seafloor topography of the coastline there. And we don't know how prepared they are for the arrival. You can only get so prepared for this thing. I mean, if tsunami is going to come in, it's going to be 5, 6 meters. That is going to cause significant damage no matter how prepared you are. The preparedness factor here really is not so much trying to protect the property, but it's really just figuring out a way to get the message out quickly and getting people out of harm's way, which they had a very difficult time back in 2010, which is why we had upwards of 500 people lost. And we're hoping for that number to be significantly lower with the lessons learned from 2010 this time around.
Yeah, and they seem to have learned that lesson. People are being evacuated and they are getting out. Our Ivan Cabrera, many thanks to you. We will, of course, check back in very soon. John.
OK, Rosemary. Jonathan Bathgate is a seismologist at Geoscience Australia. He joins us now on the phone from Canberra. Jonathan, good to speak with you. We're talking an 8.2 magnitude quake, 20 kilometres below the seabed, about 100 kilometres off the coast of Chile. In terms of seismic events, how big is this?
This is certainly a significant earthquake, and one that Chile has certainly experienced before, like we've been hearing. But those earthquakes were quite a lot further to the south. In 1960, the magnitude 9.5, and 2010, the magnitude 8.8. So, although this is a little bit smaller than that, it certainly has the potential to generate a tsunami and cause extensive damage.
A lot of people in this region have been expecting what they call the big one, a powerful earthquake. Is this it?
We really don't know. I mean, this is certainly a very large earthquake, and obviously earthquakes are something that we can't predict. The area has been experiencing a high level of seismicity over recent weeks. On the 16th of March, obviously there was a magnitude 6.7 and a number of magnitude 6 or greater earthquakes in the weeks following that. So it's certainly been very active, and now we've had this one this morning and a 6.2 aftershock as well. So we can't really say whether there's anything larger to come, but we certainly would expect some significant aftershocks following this morning's earthquake, and hopefully that the pattern usually is that they become less frequent and smaller in magnitude, and they sort of just dissipate over time. But that doesn't rule out another very large earthquake occurring.
OK, you mentioned the tsunami. We've been told by officials that the tsunami warning and watches have been cancelled everywhere except for Chile and Peru. What does that tell you about this earthquake and about, I guess, the potential here for destruction? Obviously, good news.
Yes, and we certainly, although we are seeing some images of damage coming in over the television at the moment, it appears to be related to the earthquake and the shaking that was related to the earthquake. I'm not sure whether we've seen anything in terms of a tsunami coming on shore at the moment, but it is a good sign that they have cancelled the tsunami watches, and it doesn't appear to be as widespread as initially thought.
You say it, and we've been told this many times before, it's pretty much impossible to predict when earthquakes will actually happen. But some witnesses, especially around the the Iquique area, which is not far from the epicenter, they were saying that they were feeling these tremors for some time, that there'd been a lot more seismic activity than usual, and they were expecting some